It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Yo, what is up? How are you guys doing this evening? Yeah, I know I look a little different, right? I got into a fight with my razor the other night and I just decided to shave it all. I've even shaved my head too. You know the weird thing though? Watch, check this out. So I shaved my head bald, shiny. The weird thing is my head was soft and smooth, and then by now it's like 5 o'clock shadow already. I feel like Homer Simpson. Like, you know, I don't know if you guys remember any of the Simpsons episodes when Homer shaves and then it's like, poof, the 5 o'clock shadow comes right back again. So, just time for a change. So, hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully you guys are staying safe and healthy. My family's safe and healthy. We're thankful for a lot of things. And, you know, we're just kind of keep on moving along. We got couple things I want to talk about videos wise. I definitely want to get to your guys' questions, and yeah, definitely nice and smooth. You know what this does is this makes me realize that I really need to lose weight. As you get older, you start to notice like, oh yeah, there's some stuff there that's not supposed to be there. And you know, when you have a beard, you can't see it. So it's like, oh yeah, this is a motivator. I need to lose weight. So right on. All right, cool. And so, you know, Bill, Curious HVAC guy, he promised me that if I shaved my head bald and my beard off, that he would shave his beard. So the challenge is here, Bill. You promised me that you would do it. So I think everybody watching this stream is going to hold Bill accountable and make him shave his beard completely, because that's what he told me he would do. So let's see what happens. Definitely want to cover a few things, but I want to start off real quick, okay? I'm just going to cover this real quick. I'm not going to go into crazy detail about it. Basically, over the weekend, and I usually don't like to cover this stuff, but I just got to say this was completely inappropriate, and I did not appreciate it whatsoever. So I am a person that admits my faults readily, okay? Whenever I realize that I potentially did something wrong, I try to, you know, I've always been completely open with everybody, okay? Another content creator on YouTube, someone that I actually look up to, which again, kind of just dumbfounded me because I totally looked up to this person. found the need to make a video basically saying what I did wrong in my video, but then filming my video with his phone and then use that on his video. I'm not going to say the name, and if you guys do know the person's name, we don't need to share it or anything. We don't need to give that person any more attention than they wanted, okay? Because that's the way that I see it, is that they just wanted attention. I make mistakes, guys. Everybody makes mistakes. Now, the particular, potential mistake, I honestly don't think I made a mistake there, okay? So I'm going to tell you guys what happened. In my recent video about the reach-in cooler, okay? I made 2 videos this week. It was the reach-in cooler, bar cooler almost won the fight, I think was the title of it, okay? So what I did was, the unit had a bunch of issues, and I put a 3-in-1 start kit on it, okay? And in the end of the video, I showed that the 3-in-1 shut the compressor off, okay? The person had said that he thought that I used the wrong 3-in-1, and that's what caused the compressor to go off. And there's a chance that I did. Honestly, I scoured through my footage, even my unedited footage, to see if I can see an image of what 3-in-1 that I used, okay? Because they do make a couple different 3-in-1s, and if you use the smaller one on the system that I was using it on, it would have been running over current, and theoretically it would have shut off on internal overload, okay? I'm pretty confident, because I usually buy the 1/2 horsepower 3-in-1s, but I'm pretty confident I was using the 1/2 horsepower. I see a bunch of super chats and everything. Thank you guys so very much. I see people becoming channel members. Thank you again. Okay, so I'm pretty confident that I bought the 1/2 horsepower 3-in-1, but I can't say for sure. I'm not going to come out here and say that I did, because I don't know. Okay, I went through my footage. The odds are that I had the right 3-in-1 on there, but the video furthermore started to just say how, I was wrong and all this stuff. Okay, who knows? Okay, there's always the potential for me being wrong, and I'm always open to say, hey, you know what? I might have made a mistake here. I usually do it all the time, okay? The right thing to do is to send me an email. Leave me a YouTube comment. The person did leave me YouTube comments. They actually left me 2 different YouTube comments, and then they kept commenting on everybody else's comments in my comments too. I'm cool with that. I have no problem with criticism, but to make a video, like, that was just kind of silly, okay? Regardless, we're not going to say the person's name. Again, if you guys know who it is, just leave it be, okay? I just had to address that. So I make mistakes just like everybody else. And if anybody out there says that they don't make mistakes, they're lying, okay? Everybody makes mistakes in their career. There's a chance that I was mistaken on this. I don't think I was, but who knows, okay? All that we can do is do our best to be the best, for the customer as possible. And that's what I strive to do, okay? Again, I'm human, just like everybody else. All right. So, but I want to address something. The person that made the video did say that it was not correct for me to say that 3-in-1 start kits were compressor killers, okay? And that is a fair statement, because I did say it in my video. That is a common phrase that I use because I don't like 3-in-1s, okay? 3-in-1 is a universal start capacitor, current relay, and overload device, okay? The particular one that I was using was made by Subco, okay? So it wasn't fair of me to say it was a compressor killer. In my defense, you have to remember something, that I'm making these videos while I'm working. These aren't planned out videos. They aren't rehearsed. They aren't scripted. Stuff comes out of my mouth sometimes, okay? And yes, I realize the more subscribers I get, the more viewers I get, I do have some sort of a responsibility to make sure that I'm fair and honest, and that is very true, okay? So it wasn't fair for me to call that 3-in-1 start kit a compressor killer, because, okay, understanding how the start kit works, it has an electronic control board in it. It looks at everything. It knows when to pull the relay in and out. It's not a fair statement for me to say that it was a compressor killer, because they can very easily, people can buy the wrong ones. People can pick the wrong ones. They can put them in situations where they don't go. The compressor could already be on its way out. There's so many different things. So it wasn't a fair statement for me to say a compressor killer. I'll give him that, okay? But again, all you got to do is send me an email. My email's out there for everybody in every one of the show notes of my videos. And I totally end up talking about these on the live streams, okay? I didn't feel the need to pull the video down because, again, it shows what people deal with every day and how people either potentially make mistakes or don't make mistakes, or, you know, I mean, I just try to share the little bit of knowledge that I have. Okay. So, super chat, Connor, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, bud. Okay. So yeah, you know, I prefer not to get into that stuff, you know, and but it really irked me for some reason. I think because I looked up to this person and it was just kind of like, oh, wow, that kind of, you know, kind of like a gut punch kind of a thing. So yeah, I really rather not get involved in the drama and all that stuff. And usually I don't. There's rarely ever any on my channel. I rarely ever delete comments, and I didn't delete comments. And I actually, the person that made the video, I actually asked him to keep his video up, because I could have flagged it and said, take it down because he used my footage. But no, I told him, I said, please keep the video up, because he had some good knowledge in there too. He was showing how to size the 3-in-1s, and there's great information in the video. It's just kind of like, dude, did you really have to call me out on that one? There was just so many different ways you can go about it, you know? So I asked him, I said, please, I don't want you to take the video down. I want you to leave the video up. But the only requirement I had was you need to pin my comment in the top of the comments, so that way everybody that comes in to comment on the video can see what I had to say about it. Okay. So, but I want to talk about these universal 3-in-1 start kits. Okay. Why don't I like them? Okay. They are a tool that we use. I wish I had one with me, but I don't. They're a tool that we have in our arsenal that we can use. Okay. I'm not a fan of very many universal components. Okay. As it shows in my videos all the time, I prefer to use OEM parts as much as possible, but I still use aftermarket parts sometimes too. The issue with aftermarket parts comes that you have to use brain power and ingenuity to put them in, and they're not effortless. Okay. Same thing goes with the 3-in-1 start kits, condenser fan motors, anything. You have to think about things. Okay. So we as technicians have to do our jobs. So the reason why I'm not a huge fan of the universal 3-in-1s is just because you have the potential to undersize them or oversize them, okay? And your best bet when it comes to the universal 3-in-1 start kits is to oversize them, okay? But the problem with oversizing them is I don't understand the mechanics of the inside of that 3-in-1, okay? And I don't understand what logic it uses to know when to go on an overcurrent situation, okay? Meaning, when does it open up the overload? So if you go with the bigger one for the 0.5 horsepower, right? I believe the overcurrent, it says it can handle up to like 12 amps or something like that, right? Okay, but what's the overcurrent or the clicks-on relay on the OEM component? Is it lower than 12 amps? If you put a universal one on there that has a higher overcurrent protection on it, are you theoretically going to create a potential fire hazard because it has a higher overcurrent than what it should have on that compressor? You kind of get where I'm going with that, okay? So it wasn't fair for me to say that they're compressor killers, because if installed properly and used properly, more than likely they probably wouldn't kill a compressor. But I just, that was kind of something that came out of my mouth, and I probably shouldn't have said it, okay? But I still don't care for the 3-in-1 start kits. There's nothing wrong with you if you use them. It's fine. I'm totally cool with that. I personally just prefer not to use them. Okay. There's lots of things that I do that other people, or that I don't do that other people do, and they get the job done just as equally as I do, you know, so it's not a big deal. Okay. I'm not calling anybody out for using them or anything like that. But I just need to be careful. You have to remember that these videos, they're really meant for my own employees, okay? And I share them with the public. And obviously, I know it's gotten a lot bigger than my own employees. But the stuff that comes across in my videos is really meant for my employees. So to my employees, we say we don't use those 3-in-1s. Now, why did I even have one on my truck if I don't use them? Well, I will use them to start up a compressor. I will use them in a worst case situation. Most of the time I keep starting components on my truck for most of the major manufacturers of refrigeration equipment that I work on. True, Hvacr, Delfield. I keep a lot of the starting components for those 3 manufacturers because I work on a lot of their stuff. This time I didn't have it, and I happened to have a universal 3-in-1 on my truck. So I was never going to leave it on there. I was going to put it on there, and then if it started up and ran, then I was going to order the OEM start components. And it's also interesting too, because in the comments, there was some people saying, in the comments on my video, saying, why would you waste the customer's money on OEM starting components? And it's not a waste of the customer's money. Again, to each their own. My particular customers actually request of me to use OEM components whenever possible. I have one customer, a very, very large restaurant chain that says only use OEM, do not use aftermarket. So, you know, I try to use OEM whenever possible. And as a business owner, again, no judgment for anybody that doesn't, but as a business owner, it's easier for me to use OEM parts, right? Because when my own technicians are out working on stuff, they're not having to re-engineer things to make aftermarket parts work. They just simply put on the OEM parts, and you know, then it's just that much easier. I know I'm missing some super chats. Jonathan Singleton, John Hershey, thank you so very much. Connor, I saw a super chat from you. I see Patrick, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are awesome, okay? I try to be as honest and open as possible with everybody, okay? We're going to go ahead and get off that high horse, and we're going to move on to the next one. Just remember, mistakes happen. There's a potential that I did make a mistake. It's hard to say, okay? But, you know, mistakes happen. Life is life, okay? When we are diagnosing things, and I'll get to the chat, if you guys have questions in the chat, please put them in caps lock so that way myself or the moderators can see them, okay? Let me see what we got in here. What am I missing? Why not use a compressor analyzer, aka bump box? Sean S. Great point, Sean. And the reason why I didn't use a compressor analyzer is because I'm lazy, okay? My compressor analyzers sit up on that right up there, and I haven't used them in years because I will typically put on OEM starting components. So what is a compressor analyzer? Okay, a compressor analyzer right there, or a bump box, is a device that has multiple capacitors inside of it, okay? And what you do is you have a start button on it, okay? So you can select between different capacitors, and you can, you know, just buy a dip switch basically, okay? And you put the wiring on the terminals, and then you turn on the power, and it actually has a volt. Well, my fancy one has an ohm meter in it actually, so you can test current. Well, I mean, you can check windings on the compressor. But some of them, some of the other ones that I've had in the past, they had an amp meter on it. You can see all kinds of cool stuff. But so basically, you turn on power, and then you have a start button. And when you push the start button, you release it if the compressor starts, and essentially you act as the relay basically. So you start it by letting the capacitor go through the circuit, and then you let it go, and the compressor starts, and that will tell you, hey, the compressor's operating properly. You can go ahead and replace the starting components, or if it doesn't start, then you know you have a bad compressor, okay? But again, because I keep most starting components on my truck, and I keep 3-in-1s, I don't mind every once in a while using a 3-in-1 to start a compressor. I just don't like leaving them on there, okay? So I'm not condemning them. I buy them. I use them, you know, but I just use them to start up a compressor, and then if it works and it's running at a good current, then I will order the OEM start components. And that's just the way that I go about things, okay? No judgment on anybody that doesn't do it that way. Where did I get all the cool swag? Oh, my, I'm like a walking merch billboard right now. Well, the hat, I'm wearing the hat for those that just came in to take away from the shininess of my head, because my dome is shiny right now. So that's why I'm wearing the hat, and the sweater because I'm cold. My wife came in my office earlier and opened the window because she said it smells funny in here. Come on, it doesn't smell funny in my office. This is a man's office. So I was cold, so I put my sweater on. So shameless plug, you can get all this merch available at hvacrvideos.com. So, all right, let me see what we got in here. What did I do with the evaporator at the mall restaurant that had all those leaks? In my recent video, I had a walk-in cooler that had refrigerant leaks in the evaporator, and the customer hasn't approved a quote yet. I actually haven't even given the customer a quote. That was from, I think, like last Thursday or something like that, or Wednesday was that video. I recorded it. So the customer just hasn't approved it. I need to give them a quote, and then we'll figure out where they want to go. But they did tell me that they would be open to changing evaporator coils. So once I give them a quote, they may decide to do so. We'll have to see. All right. I'm going to get to, let me cross this stuff off my list real quick. I already covered that one, and I already covered that one. That way I know. And let me look at do I ever check heat exchangers? Yeah, but I really, especially with COVID going on right now, we are not getting heating calls. So in Southern California, or in California in general, restaurants are not open to in-person dining, and they're not even open to outside dining at the moment. So they're not fixing any of their air conditioning systems unless it's affecting the kitchen operations, or if it's just like, you know, raining down water. They're not fixing anything. So I'm sure I've got heat exchangers like crazy that have failed and all kinds of issues. But another thing we have to think about is California, we have really mild weather, so we don't get a huge call for heating. So I think last year, previous winter, the last winter we had, I guess I should say, I think I got 1 or 2 heating calls. That's it. So we have such mild weather out here that we don't get much on the heating. I look like Slim Shady. That's funny. I'm secretly 5 years old. That is right. Why do I have a baby face? Yep. I know, I'm freaking everybody out right now. Even my wife and my daughters were like, what? Like, what happened? Who is this? Freaked them all out. I look like an overweight 37-year-old Eminem. Actually, I think Eminem is the same age as me. I think 40 or something. I'm 37, but I'm an overweight 37-year-old Eminem. All right. Let me see. How do you troubleshoot a faulty oil pressure switch? Yeah, that's not really something I could say over here. You'd have to look at the schematic and learn how they operate. What did you do? I already answered that question. Is checking a heat pump discharge by 100 plus ambient still a good rule of thumb for charging? Checking high pressure discharge by 1. Okay, no. So there's rules of thumb. I'm going to kind of answer that generally. There's rules of thumb that we have in the industry that you could take an ambient temperature, let's say it's 100 degrees outside, and then you take you could take your condensing temperature of the refrigerant, so the refrigerant pressure converted to a temperature, and then you could add 30 degrees to that, and your outside air temperature, it should be basically 30 degrees under that number. That's not an accurate way to charge anything these days, okay? When we had 8-SEER, 6 to 8-SEER equipment, that was fixed orifice. Some of those rules of thumb you could get by with. But these days, no, you have to talk to the manufacturer, see how they make the system operate, how they designed it, and kind of go with that. Superheat, subcooling, different things. With that being said, I have a question that someone had talked about. In a recent startup, I was working on a refrigeration walk-in cooler startup, actually. And when I was doing the commissioning, I showed it in the video, I checked the subcooling. And the person wanted to know, why did I check subcooling if I was working on a system with a receiver? So with that being said, on most refrigeration systems that have receivers, if they have an expansion valve, okay, subcooling really isn't a metric that we use, okay? So let me make this clear. If we are working on a system, we will install a sight glass on the liquid line. Typically, you want the sight glass as close to the expansion valve as possible, but that's not really where they normally put them. They normally put them outside at the receiver. We will typically charge a system to a clear sight glass, and we will not use subcooling as a charging metric, okay? But we don't ignore subcooling completely, because subcooling is still a number that we want to see. You want to see some subcooling, okay? But you're not looking for necessarily 10 degrees subcooling coming out, okay? The next thing is that if you see 30 degrees subcooling, well, that's an indication that we have a gross overcharge, right? We have way too much gas in that system, so something's going on. So subcooling is still a number that we will look at, right? But it's not what we use to charge the systems on refrigeration equipment that have expansion valves and receivers, okay? So you have to understand that. I see so many people, and I don't get into the conversations on social media, but I see so many people that say, stop looking at the sight glass and just charge to 10 degrees subcooling and you'll be good to go. You would be massively, massively overcharged on a walk-in cooler if you just simply charge to 10 degrees subcooling, okay? Unless it's a really high efficient system. I've seen on some of the new, actually the video that I did the Zoom Lock install on, right? The Zoom Lock Max video. That's a really high efficiency condensing unit, and I actually had measurable subcooling coming out of the receiver, and I was actually very surprised with that. I think it might have even been close to 10 degrees, but that's because they had an extra subcooling circuit in the condenser, okay? So with that being said, I want to make this clear. When we are working on a refrigeration system, you do not just simply charge to 10 degrees subcooling and walk away, okay, when it has an expansion valve and a receiver. But don't ignore subcooling. Same thing goes for superheat. Superheat doesn't mean very much to me so long as it's not 0 degrees, while I'm charging the system, okay? Superheat is something that I'm going to look at after the system is fully charged. When it's almost down to temperature, we're going to look at the evaporator superheat and the compressor superheat, and we're going to find a happy medium between the two. Typically on most walk-in coolers, we want to see anywhere from 8 to 12 degrees evaporator superheat, depending on what you've got in that equipment, okay? It may be engineered to run something really funky, but the general equipment, 8 to 12 degrees is a pretty good number. And then on low temperatures, you're going to see 6 to 8 degrees on walk-in freezers, evaporator superheat. But that is when it's almost down to temperature. You're not going to be going and cranking on expansion valves and stuff when it's still, 30 degrees above the actual set point of the box, because your expansion valve is going to be way out of whack if you try dialing in the superheat when the system temperatures are really high, okay? So hopefully that answered that person's question. I'm going to get to the chat right now and see what I'm missing in here. YouTube should let the creator place where the advertisement goes so they don't get cut off mid-sentence. More of a statement. Oh, okay, got you. Did they show an ad or something like that right now? Yeah, who knows? Have I ever put the wrong gas in a condenser, and is it bad? Yeah, I have. I've actually been working on a system where I'm not paying attention. It usually happens when you're super stressed out and you're taking shortcuts and you're cutting corners, and you go to charge up a system, or I'm going to top off the charge in a system, and I just grab some refrigerant and I start putting it in. And then as you're charging, I've looked down and it's like, oh man, this is a 410A system and I just put R22 in it. Oh, I've done it a few times, it happens. The important thing is what you do with it, right? Because some people say, well, it's running okay, I'm just going to leave it be. No. Stop what I'm doing, okay? Go ahead and get my recovery machine, recover the gas out of the system, weigh in new refrigerant, okay? Now, if I accidentally put the wrong refrigerant in the system, guess what? I don't feel the need that I have to vacuum the system down, and I don't feel the need that I have to change the dryer so long as the system still has refrigerant. All that I'm going to do is recover the gas, pull it into a negative, right? Just even with the recovery machine, I can pull it into a negative and then go ahead and charge with new gas, okay? There's no need, in my opinion, in that situation, unless it was completely flat on gas or unless there was some sort of contamination or something like that. Now, also, obviously, if the unit has a leak, if you're topping off the charge, you want to try to look for the leak, that kind of stuff. But yes, I have put the wrong refrigerant in systems before, and no, I did not leave it in there, even though it seemed like it was working okay. No, because the next time myself or the next guy, I always say, think about the next guy. I'm hoping that it's me when I say that. Think about the next guy. We don't want him to be confused when he's trying to do something. So no, I won't leave a mixed gas in a system that I created. No. All right. At what point do I decide to adjust the TXV? Let's just say I'm working on a walk-in cooler. I want to see that expansion valve within about 10 degrees of set point. So if the box is set, I would say 5 degrees of set point. So if the box is set for 35 degrees, if the box temperature gets to 40 degrees, and I'll go ahead and put my gauges on it and look at the superheat. If the superheat is not hunting like crazy, right, going up and down and up and down, if it's kind of stable and high, then I will adjust it, okay? So within 5, 6 degrees of set point, maybe 10, just depends, okay? That's when I'll decide to adjust on the expansion valve. And remember, when you start adjusting on expansion valves, you want to do small adjustments. A little bit goes a long way, okay? So I typically do quarter turns. So an expansion valve has 1 full turn. Well, I'll usually do quarter turns. So I'll usually do like 2 or 3 quarter turns and see where it goes. Most of the time, I'm adjusting superheat down. So I'll bring the stem out of the valve, adjust it maybe like 3 quarter turns, wait about 10 minutes, watch the expansion valve kind of operate, watch the superheat stabilize, and then approach it again. But another thing you want to remember too, when adjusting expansion valves, most expansion valves are factory set, and there's really no reason to ever have to adjust them unless there's variables that cause issues, okay? One big issue, you don't want to go adjusting an expansion valve before you check the strainers. Sometimes they have removable strainers on the expansion valves. You always want to check those strainers out before you start adjusting expansion valves, okay? Because the strainer's there to protect the expansion valve, and it'll get plugged up, and then it'll throw your superheat all out of whack, and you'll be just adjusting, wrenching on that valve, and nothing's happening, and then you find out, oh, the strainer's plugged. Well, then now you've adjusted that valve way out of whack, and you got to get back to the midpoint position. So be cautious about that. Always want to clean and check your strainers before you start adjusting on expansion valves. All right. Does R290 run 20 to 30 degrees over ambient? You know, my experience with R290 being very efficient, I typically see closer to 20 to 25 degrees over ambient. But again, you want to talk to the manufacturer and see what they recommend before you start playing with things. I am not a person that likes to top off the charge on R290 systems. I'm not judging anybody else for doing so, okay? But topping off the charge on an R290 system, as far as my business is concerned, is a liability. So if an R290 system is low on gas, we want to find, repair the leak, recover the gas or vent the gas in R290's case, because you don't have to recover it, pull a vacuum or change the dryer, pull a vacuum, and weigh in the factory charge. I don't like to guess and add refrigerant to an R290 system. And again, as a liability with my business, I'm afraid of fires or explosions, and my insurance company would not like me if something like that happened. So I don't want to be the person to add R290 to a known leaking system. Not in my wheelhouse, not something that I personally want to do. But just from my experience, because I do record all the systems that I work on for the most part, I've started to notice a trend of where the pressures do operate, and I tend to see them 20 to 25 degrees over ambient for the condensing temp on R290 systems, yes. You found up to 5 good TXVs on top of a walk-in, all deemed bad. Yeah, definitely, right? There's really not, guys, hold on. Well, that sucked. Apparently, I don't have my expansion valves. But there's really not much that goes bad in an expansion valve, okay? This one right here has a dirty strainer, okay? This is the strainer up here. The strainer's pretty dirty. It's kind of hard to see through it. But the reason why I changed this valve, you can usually rebuild expansion valves, okay? The reason why I changed this one was because the seals were all leaking. When I pulled the stem off the superheat adjustment stem right here, I tried adjusting this and it was leaking out of the seal right here, and I tried tightening it and I couldn't get it to tighten. So we went ahead and changed this valve right here, but this totally could have been fixed had I been able to get a replacement packing for it. But I could have pulled it out and tried to field fix it, but I didn't have them. And it was one of those things where I needed to get the equipment running, so it was just as easy to go ahead and change out the valve real quick, okay? But for the most part, there's not a whole lot that fails in an expansion valve. It can get plugged up with gunk and crap. If that's the case, you need to figure out where that gunk's coming from so you can go ahead and clean it, okay? But you always want to, and I keep extra strainers, by the way, too. So I have my Sporlan BQ kit, right? And that's the kit. I think I've got I don't have well, I kind of have a picture of it right here on the back wall, but I have a kit that has all the parts that I can build expansion valves with, and I keep extra strainers because you know what's really cool? You can order these strainers, right? And so if you come up to a system where you've got a plugged up strainer, you can safely, if you do this properly, you can do a hot swap on that strainer, okay? So you pump the system down to about 2-3 PSI, and you just unscrew the strainer and you have a clean one with you, right? Because I keep new ones, pull a clean one out, put it right back in. It still has positive pressure in it. And I screw it back in and boom, the strainer's clean. And I didn't even have to recover the gas or anything like that. So that's why I keep extra strainers in my toolkit right there. So that way I can just swap them out. Just do a hot swap on the strainer when possible. You want to be careful about doing hot swaps though, because you can get into trouble with that. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on in here. Let me see. What else can I show us? I don't have a whole lot back there. Apparently all my tear or cut, I have expansion valves that I cut open and stuff, but I don't know where it went. Must be in my work truck or something like that. I might have taken it to work with me for a video or something, 'cause sometimes I'll put them in there. But yeah, I keep them there so I can show. There's really not much to an expansion valve. There's a spring, there's a seat, there's a power head, there's some, it's funny, I happen to have a expansion valve rod right here if I can get it up. No, I don't think I can get it out. I have it sitting on my desk right here. There's some push rods that go on the valve. This is one right here. This might have been out of a head pressure control valve, I don't know, but it's very similar to an expansion valve one. There's usually 1 or 2 of these, and they push up and down on the seat. They have opposing pressure from the power head to the superheat spring. I mean, there's really not a whole lot that can fail on them, so most of the time you can rebuild them if possible. All right, let's see what else. Hey, you know what? I mean, I can't tell them. Alaska HVAC says make sure you sniff the refrigerant for contaminants when you do a hot swap. So there's truth in that, right? But I don't want people going out smelling refrigerant. But when you've been working in refrigeration long enough, you can actually smell refrigerant. Like you can take a small little smell and you can say, yeah, there's something wrong there. That doesn't smell right. That smells acidic. Of course, my nose is not as accurate as an actual acid test, but you can smell a lot of things in refrigerant. You can smell when, okay, that doesn't smell right. You know, something's going on there. Do I have used Fluke meters? I don't have any used ones that I want to get rid of, but I have a few Fluke meters. Yes, I have a bench meter sitting over here, somewhere over here that I use. And then I have a Fluke meter in my work van. I have a Fluke meter in my garage, but I'm not getting rid of them. No, they're great meters. Nothing wrong with them. I personally use the field piece ones in my bags just because they're light and super simple, but no, I use Fluke ones too for sure. Let me see what else. Can you hot swap a pressure switch? You have to be careful because doing stuff like that, you have to, it's questionable whether or not you're violating EPA policies, okay? So the question is, when you're doing a hot swap, have I ever hot swapped a pressure switch? Yes, I have, okay? The question you have to ask yourself is, when you recover the charge out of a system and you open it up, there's going to be vapor left in the system. You're never going to get all the refrigerant out of a system, okay? And there's going to be losses in your hoses and different things like that. When you pull your gauges off, there's going to be de minimis losses, right? Losses that are legally allowed because you've done everything you can to prevent those losses, okay? So with that being said, it's a moral decision. Are your losses from a hot swap going to be more or less than the losses from when you're recovering your gas, following all proper practices? There's still going to be acceptable losses. So it's a questionable thing. You know, it's not really something I'm going to show on video because it's, you know, it's one of those things. But I mean, to say that nobody's ever done a hot swap before, of course, that's a lie. I mean, majority of the people have, but we have an obligation as HVAC service technicians to be concerned about the environment. So obviously we want to let the least amount of refrigerant out into the environment, right? You have government organizations that protect us from doing that, right? The EPA and stuff like that in the United States, but you still have an obligation to do your best to recover all that gas, okay? We're very, very big about recovering refrigerant at our company. In fact, we just had a meeting about it where we were talking with one of our techs because I was like, hey man, I'm starting to notice, like I had to ask him, like, how much empty refrigerant cylinders do you have in your van? Because I'm noticing that some of these things aren't, I didn't see many recovery receipts coming in, but it ended up, he was doing his job. It's just, he was waiting until the tanks were like almost completely full before he brought them in. But I just didn't see as many of receipts of him swapping out those tanks. So I had to question him, hey dude, you're recovering, right? And he's like, yeah, you know, and then we had to talk about it. So yeah, we're really big about recovery at our shop. But I mean, I'll be fair and honest. I came up old school where I was taught recovery machines were a waste of time. But I obviously went and got my EPA certification and said, well, wait, the government's telling me otherwise. So, you know, what do we got to do here? And then that's when we really started instituting more recovery practices. And then now we're 100%. There's, you know, we don't vent anything at all. So, why is it that some refrigerants such as 404 and 22 can get below freezing and some such as 134 and R12 and 410 can't? Well, I'm assuming that you mean evaporator temperatures can get below freezing. The problem with some of the refrigerants, I'm not a chemist, okay? Actually, this is a great point. I always put his email address on here, and I'm gonna share my buddy Ralph. My buddy Ralph works for Honeywell Refrigerants, okay? Ralph is always open to answering questions, and he's a much smarter dude than I when it comes to different refrigerants and what they can do, okay? When it comes to different refrigerants, why they're better, well, they're chemically made to operate at different temperatures, okay? 410A is meant to operate within a certain envelope, and it performs best within that envelope. So every refrigerant can do different, and refrigerants can operate outside of their, you know, normal operating envelopes, but they can be unpredictable and not as efficient too, okay? But R12, I've come across many R12 freezers. I've come across many R134A freezers. I've come across R22 freezers. Are they as efficient? No, not necessarily, but I mean, they're there. You know, for the most part, 502 was the refrigerant to use instead of R12 for a freezer, and 502 was the refrigerant to use instead of R22 for a freezer. 404 was the replacement gas for 502, and then now we're kind of pushing towards, I'm using 448A. I actually did a startup on a walk-in freezer today with 448A as my new refrigerant. So feel free to email my buddy Ralph. He can probably answer some more questions. I'm not the smartest person when it comes to the chemical composition and why some refrigerants are better than others at low temps. I just know that they're chemically made to operate better. So, all right, what happens if you accidentally mix two different types of refrigerant? Well, what you did, if you mix two different types of refrigerant, you just became a chemist, okay? And like I said, certain refrigerants are meant to do certain things between certain operating envelopes. And if you mix different refrigerants, you play with the chemical composition and you don't really know what's going to happen, okay? Now, when we get into the advent of flammable refrigerants, that's when we start to get even more scary, okay? So you don't ever want to mix refrigerants, because the next person, I can tell you, look up, you can barely see the edge of it in the screen right now, but I have a pressure temperature chart right here, and it tells me all the common refrigerants, and I know that R448A will be this pressure at this temperature because it says it right on the pressure chart. And the manufacturer, when they made that refrigerant, they chemically made it to where it operates within that envelope, right? So when you start mixing refrigerants, I no longer can look at that and say that refrigerant will be at this temperature. So it throws me off as a service technician and doesn't help me to be able to troubleshoot that equipment. When I put my gauges on there and I see my saturation temperatures are way high or way low, I start to get confused. And it says that it's this refrigerant, but the saturation temperatures don't match. Like, something's wrong here. So when you start mixing refrigerants, you mess things up. And that goes for the people that think that you can take these alternative refrigerants that are supposed to replace R22 and whatever, right? And you can mix them with other refrigerants. They're not meant to be doing that, okay? I know some people do it and it works for some people, but that's not the way that they were designed, okay? There's a term called a drop-in refrigerant, and people have gotten skewed on what that means. Drop-in does not mean that you drop it on top of another refrigerant. A drop-in refrigerant, the term drop-in, right, originally was made to mean that you take out the old gas and you just simply put this refrigerant in. No oil changes, no anything. That's what drop-in means. But we have really messed that up, and so we're getting away from using the term drop-in refrigerant and we're calling it an alternative refrigerant, right? Because too many people think that you can drop it in on top of the other refrigerant. That is not the case with any refrigerants out there. We are not supposed to mix or make our own mixtures of any refrigerants, period. Stephen Montanez, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. I really, really appreciate it. And there's no way that I would ever touch being president. Heck no. I don't want any of that drama. I'm just a dumb knuckle busting mechanic over here, a mediocre one at that. So your community college instructor in 1990 said recovering refrigerant and the hole in the ozone layer was a communist propaganda. Hey, Dave, I get it, right? Because I was raised by an old school service technician, my dad, one of the greatest mechanics that I know, but we didn't recover anything. In fact, I can remember as a kid before 1992, right? I can remember blowing out condensers with R22. That was a normal thing. Blowing out drain lines. We got a drum of R22. Why go get nitrogen or CO2? We got a drum of 22. Just put the hose on there, put it in the drain, blew the drain out. That was common practice between many service technicians, okay? Why would you go all the way down to your van to get a CO2? Nobody even carried CO2 for the most part. You just grabbed that refrigerant, blew out the condenser, you know? It was wrong, right? But we need to change things. We need to be better service technicians. We need to be responsible service technicians. So, all right. Let me see what else we got in here. How about MO99? Is it better than R22? I personally, and you'll want to reach out to my buddy Ralph. I'll put his email in here again. He's the man when it comes to talking about alternative refrigerants. He will help you out tremendously. There's his email. With the MO99 being a better refrigerant, I personally don't use MO99 refrigerant. I've only used a few alternative refrigerants. I still use R22. My customers still ask me to use R22, so that's what I sell them. It's still available. We still keep it in our trucks. I still have a full drum of R22. I probably go through a full drum of R22. I definitely don't use it as much, but every couple months I'm buying another drum because I use it on certain repairs. So still common practice, but I'm not using alternative refrigerants just because my customer base is not demanding it yet. Okay, I am, however, using alternative refrigerants. I should say alternative refrigerants for R22. I'm not using any for 22, but here in California, like for refrigeration, we're not allowed to use 404A anymore on new installations. So I'm using R448A, which is the replacement refrigerant or alternative refrigerant to 404A. So yeah, we're using that. But how often do I whack a failing low pressure control? I mean, if I'm watching a system, that's a very common thing. I'll take my screwdriver. If I'm watching it pump down and it's going below where I think it's supposed to turn off at, if you just give the pressure control a whack, what it usually means is the electrical contact inside that pressure control is starting to stick. And every once in a while, that because it's corroded, so it heats up, and then you get arcing, and then it welds itself kind of shut, and then it'll open, and then kind of weld itself shut. It usually means that the contact is failing within that. So yeah, it's a common thing. Like if I whack a control, that just means, hey, this control is going bad. You whack it and boom, and it'll open up, and then okay, I got to change that. So have I worked with R513A? You're seeing it used with refrigeration air dryers for air compressors. No, I haven't worked with that yet. But I know there's all kinds of new different ones, especially with them allowing more A2Ls, mildly flammable refrigerants. You're starting to see a lot new stuff coming, a lot of new stuff coming out. Guys, really important to understand something. R22. Okay, so I keep a bunch of different refrigerants in my van. I keep 404A, I keep R22, I keep 410A, 448A, 134A, R290. I think that's all I keep in my van. Every refrigerant, we don't need to worry about what the pressures are with those refrigerants or anything, because if you learn how to read a pressure temperature chart and you understand saturation temperatures, condensing temperatures, evaporator temperatures, you have to have a vague understanding of, and you're never going to fully understand what glide is, but you have to have a general understanding what temperatures, what pressures to use. When you're looking for evaporator temperatures, you want to I typically will use the midpoint temperature of the glide, different things like that. Okay. But with that being said, I don't know what pressure 448A should be. I don't know what pressure 404 should be. I don't know what pressure 22, 134. I used to know those numbers, but I realized that I didn't need to know those numbers. All I need to know is remember what my condensing temperature should be. If I know that my condensing temperature should be 120 degrees for that particular system, I'm just looking at my pressure chart. I could care less what the pressure number is. I'm looking at the temperature of the refrigerant. So once you start understanding that, that's going to unlock a lot of stuff in your troubleshooting, is paying attention more to saturation temperatures, right? And learning about those, and forget about the actual pressure, right? The only time I really need to know what a pressure is when I'm setting a pressure control for a cut in and cut out temperature or pressure. But, really, I don't need to know much, when it comes to pressures. I pay attention to the temperatures. Now, of course, I wasn't taught that. I've gotten that way in the last 10 years where I start paying attention to the temperatures. I used to think pressures all the time, like, hey, what's the pressure supposed to be? But think about it, okay? We understand how an air conditioning system works, right? Simple R22 fixed orifice metering device air conditioning system, right? It's 100 degrees outside. Let's just say it's an 8-SEER system, okay? Old school. Fixed orifice. It's 100 degrees outside, right? My condensing temperature is going to be, my pressure is going to be, about 30 degrees over ambient temperature, okay? And to figure out what my evaporator pressure and my superheat should be, because we should be charging to a superheat, we're going to use some temperature clamps, and we're going to test the indoor wet bulb and the outdoor dry bulb, and we're going to calculate the target superheat. But with that being said, everything's changing now, right? So the pressures, I was taught that way, but we've had to learn that with high efficiency equipment, they're lowering condenser TDs, they're raising evaporator TDs. Everything's changing, right? So if we can just learn how the manufacturer designed the system, we have to be open to that, okay? Because we can't just go into there and someone say, I know what the pressure should be. It should be this much over this much. But everything affects the pressures. If it's really hot outside, the pressures are going to be higher. If it's really cold outside, the pressures are going to be lower, right? But if we understand what the condenser TD should be, the temperature differential of the condenser, right? If we understand what that should be, then the pressures don't mean anything to me. I know what the ambient temperature is. I know what the TD is. So I subtract those two numbers and I come up with my actual condensing temperature. And then I look at my gauges and I say, my refrigerant pressure is this temperature at that, So start trying to pay more attention to the actual temperatures of the refrigerant. I feel like I'm butchering some of that, so I apologize if I am. I feel like I kind of got lost in my own words there. Have I ever worked on any of those drop-in coolers by Delfield? Pain in the butt. Yeah, I've worked on a bunch of different drop-in ones. The ice cream ones, the cold rail ones. Yeah, I've worked on a lot of them. You only see the blue one on Chris's videos. Is that a new sponsor? No. Okay, so in the past, I had blocked Bluon from advertising on my videos. I have no control over who YouTube picks to advertise on my videos, I should say, but I can block Bluon from being an advertiser, right? But I can't say I want you to go pick Honeywell refrigerants to be an advertiser. I have no say in that matter. In the past, I had blocked Bluon. I realized that a lot of people, I've heard it probably 5-6 times now where they're starting to say that they're seeing Bluon ads on my videos. They are not a sponsor of mine. They pay YouTube. I have nothing to do with that. Inadvertently, I get paid by YouTube, so, you know, whatever. But no, Bluon is not a sponsor of my channel. They just pay YouTube and they target my demographic basically and advertise on my channel. So in the past, I had blocked them. Honestly, I haven't even looked into why they're not being blocked anymore. I don't know if it's like a new year thing or if YouTube doesn't let me, you know, turn that off anymore. I don't know. You've got a heat pump not heating well, 36 degree ambient, 130 degree discharge line, good airflow, but only 75 degrees supply air, clean coils, filter. Any idea what to check next? Sounds like it's going to be a refrigeration issue, but no, I can't tell you what to check here. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you're a technician or not, but you're probably going to need to get a technician out if you're not, because you've got some issues going on there for sure. So, what temp should a reach-in cooler be? 10 below set point? Temperature? What do you mean by that? What temp should a reach-in cooler evaporator be? I missed that part. No, reach-in cooler evaporators run at much higher TDs, actually. In my understanding, the way that I was informed, the reason why they do that, they run really high TDs, sometimes up to 30-degree TDs. So that would mean that the box temperature, the evaporator would sometimes be like 25 to 30 degrees below the box temperature. That would be the evaporator temperature. My understanding is the reason why they do that is they are essentially able to bring the space temperature inside the box down a lot faster because you have a high demand of opening and closing. So they want to bring it down quick. But every reach-in cooler is designed differently, so it really depends on which one you're working on. But typically I'm going to see in the 20-degree range, somewhere between 20 and 25, sometimes 30 degrees below box temperature is what your evaporator temperature is going to be in my experience. When does foaming oil in a compressor sight glass or oil float sight glass become a cause for concern? Quinn. So I am not an expert when it comes to oil conditions, but foaming oil I do know can be an issue, especially sometimes that can indicate refrigerant mixing with the oil. And that what can happen is that oil can leave with the refrigerant and you could have low oil in the system. So you want to be cautious about that stuff. But again, I'm not an expert with oil management. I really don't deal with it too much. With that being said, I did have a question that I kind of want to address about oil too, is someone had asked me, when I fix refrigerant leaks on refrigeration systems, do I then have to add oil to the system? So yeah, that's a good question. So for the most part, depending on the size of the leak, okay, oil does travel with the refrigerant in most of in our systems. Okay, so if there is a leak, it's going to be a good indication because you're typically going to have oil in the space of that leak. Okay, so but for the most part, oil travels. You know, a little bit goes a long way. So if you have a small leak, for the most part, unless you have quarts of oil on the ground, you're probably going to be okay. But you do have to pay attention to the oil levels in the system. Now, on most of my systems that I work on, there's really no way to check the oil in them. So that can be a problem. You just got to kind of pay attention to compressor vital signs, just listening to the compressor. Is it overheating? Is it running high current? Different things like that. So for the most part, you know, there's some systems that I have to add oil to. I mean, if I came out and saw what looked to be some compressors might have a gallon of oil, right? Depending on the size of it. If I come out and see a gallon of oil on the ground, then yeah. But I mean, if I just see a couple drops of oil, a little oily residue on the leak, no, I'm not going to add oil for something like that. So let me see. Let me cover that. Let me mark that question off. Yeah, I covered that one. Mark that being done. Perfect. Let me see. Is Bluon a bad word? Nah, it's not a bad word. The only issue I had with Bluon a while back was that someone came into my chat from Bluon and was trying to market them in my chat. And that pissed me off. So I blocked him from my channel for a while. But I don't care. I don't have any issues with Blue On. I've never used it. So I have nothing bad to say about it. I just didn't like their marketing at the time. So I blocked them from being an advertiser. But no, I don't have an issue with them. I don't mind them advertising on my channel right now. It is what it is. They're another brand, and I have nothing bad to say about them. I'm fidgeting right now because I put a social media post about a Leatherman, you know, a multi-tool, and I ended up buying one. I bought the Leatherman Charge Titanium. Pretty cool little tool. I like it. I'm playing with it, so I like it because you can access all the tools from the outside of it, so you don't have to open it to access the tools. So it's pretty nice. I've been carrying it with me. I've used it a couple times. I actually used it today. It's not something I'm going to use every single time, but pretty neat little tool. Has some wire cutters, wire crimpers right up here. So yeah, pretty neat. I like it, but I'm just sitting here fidgeting with it, playing with it as I'm talking and rambling. Terry, I don't mean to bypass you if I do, dude. It's nothing against anybody. I'm not trying to bypass anybody. I think I answered your question, though, didn't I, Terry? Pretty sure I did. Have I seen Blue On in the supply houses? Yeah, it's there. And, you know, if I get to 100K, can you do a GoFundMe for Yamo HVAC to get a new vacuum pump? That's funny. I was just talking with Yamo the other day. He was saying that he wants to get a new vacuum pump. That is funny. What temp? Okay, I already answered that one. Let me get down here. Can you use R22 with polyester? Oh, yes, you can. Yeah, I've used R22 with POE many times. Typically, you see mineral oil in the R22 systems, but yeah, you definitely can use R22 with POE. Let me see what else. Pay attention to your temperatures, though, because different oils do different things when the evaporator temperatures get really low. So in a very ultra low temperature situation, I don't know how well the oil would mix with the R22. So you want to pay attention. But in my medium temperature and high temperature applications, I've yet to have a problem with POE and R22. So I had a question from someone, and he's an apprentice, and he just kind of wanted to know if I could give him any advice on how to make his day-to-day go better and how he could make his boss happier. It's a really simple question, and I get a question of this sort quite often. As an apprentice, I've said this many times. I feel like when you go to work, what you need to do is you need to learn how to keep your mouth shut and your ears and your eyes open, okay? And what I mean by that is when you go to work and you're working with your boss, you need to listen to him and you need to watch him, okay? Now, I'm not talking a 6-month period time of listening and watching. Within a day or two of working with your boss, by listening and watching him, you should already be learning his habits. Okay, you watch him go and fix, you're changing a compressor and you see that, you know what, your boss goes down to the van and gets the torches, the recovery machine, the vacuum pump, the dryer, the, you know, this, the that, when he's doing a compressor change out, a new contactor, whatever it is. So by the second or third time, you should already be predicting what your boss wants you to get. Then at the same time, you need to still be watching him. So that way, if, you know, your boss says, hey, I need you to go get the torches, guess what? It'd be cool if you already had the torches for him. I already knew you were going to ask me for that. I got them right here. You know, you start predicting. So by listening and watching your boss, okay? Now, when I say you need to keep your mouth shut, I just mean that at the right times. There's a time and place to ask your boss or the person you're working with questions, okay? Questions are great, but sometimes when he's working is not the right time for questions, so you need to gauge that out. And it's okay if he says, you know what, bud, we need to focus on changing this compressor, and then you can ask me questions later. I've said that many times. I said, don't forget that question, and we'll talk about it on the drive home or something, you know? So now then, as an apprentice, what I want you to do is when you're at work, I want you to pick up your phone, when you're not doing anything else, and start taking pictures of equipment that you don't know what it is, taking pictures of model numbers and serial numbers. And when your day is over, when you go home, your job's not over. That's when you're going to start researching stuff on the internet. You're going to look up that model number. You're going to start looking into that. What is that particular piece of equipment? Try to find something on the internet. Go to the Facebook groups, go to the YouTube, whatever. Go to HVAC Talk message board. Start looking for pictures and figuring out what equipment is, okay? So your boss is going to be much happier with you if you start predicting what he wants and what he needs, right? And then what'll start happening as you start predicting what he needs, you'll start recognizing that, hey, this happens when this happens, or hey, we need to change that dryer. And you start becoming a person that's ready to start getting in there and changing things, and you can predict issues and you'll be able to start diagnosing things. So as an apprentice, if you want to be a better apprentice, learn when to keep your mouth shut, okay? Listen and pay attention and start predicting what your boss or the person you're working with is going to need, and pay attention to everything that they're doing, okay? That's the best advice I can give to any apprentice out there. So hopefully that helps you, bud. All right. Let's see what else. Do me a favor, guys. Smash the thumbs up button. We got 300 people in here right now and 161 likes. It'd really, really help if you get that like count up, okay? Please do. Best core removal tool, C&D. Phew, I am having a hard time with core removal tools right now. I've had C&D in the past. I have nothing bad to say about them, but lately, man, all my core removal tools have been leaking and it's really been pissing me off. So I've been having a hard time with that. And where the core removal tools are leaking is on the O-ring for the shutoff port. On the Appion one, the Yellow Jacket ones, the True Blue Special Yellow Jacket ones, they're all leaking on the ball valve little thing. I'll be vacuuming a system down, and when you shut that, all of a sudden it just starts leaking. It drives me nuts. So I don't have an opinion on which core tool to use right now. Philip, thank you so very much for that super chat. I really, really appreciate it, bud. All those super chats you guys have given really definitely helped me out. So thank you so very much. Okay. Are blue on tanks colored blue? I think in the past they were, but all refrigerants are growing to the same monotone tan brown color because they just ran out of colors. There's too many different flavors of refrigerants these days. So I'm going to get to my questions here. The ice machine books that I use inside my videos, where do I get all those ice machine books? I go to training classes for the manufacturers, okay? When you go to a Manitowoc training class, they give you a service book, at least the last couple times I have. Same thing goes for every other brand. You can also purchase those books directly from the manufacturer or their distributor. So my distributor for Manitowoc ice machines here in California is Western Pacific Distributors. I go to WPD and I say, hey, I need some of the S model Quiet Cube books, and they'll sell them to me. Okay, so I buy a couple at a time and I save them. I have a crap ton of them. Same thing goes for almost every brand out there. Hoshizaki, Manitowoc, Follett, Vote, Isomatic, Scotsman. You can buy all their different books. You just need to call and ask the right people, and you can get them. You can also go to all their websites pretty much, and they have all those books typically available for free, actually. Well, I prefer to hold the book in my hand, but yeah. All right, let's see what else we got in here. How do I deal with the spec'd equipment that then does not meet what the customer specified? Mike Fox, that's an interesting question, okay? So I've never really ran into a problem where it became a big issue per se, but I did notice in that situation, I definitely go back to the engineer, whoever the engineer that designed the equipment, and I'd say, hey, dude, I gave you the specs and you made the equipment, you know, you said to use this and it's not working. But you really want to pay a lot of attention to little things, right? I've started to notice that I'll be on Russell's website or something, getting equipment information, and, you know, I'll size up the equipment, doing load calculations, and it says that I should have a 10-degree evaporator TD, but I don't, you know. My only guess is that they're not sizing the orifice inside the, behind the expansion valve or before the expansion valve, before it goes into the distributor correctly, and that's affecting the TD. Also, I would imagine oversizing or undersizing condensing units can mess with your TD too. So, but it's never really been an issue for me. I mean, it's always operated just fine. It just wasn't where it, completely should be. But I would definitely, if I had an issue where it wasn't meeting whatever, I'd go back to the engineer. I will tell you a story. I've talked about this before, but I got a call as a second opinion to a bakery one time. A local bakery, and it was a brand new building, and a general contractor had his own guy, right, his own refrigeration guy that did all of his air conditioning and refrigeration and tile work and all kinds of weird crap, right? That's a dead giveaway. If you have a guy that does refrigeration, air conditioning, tile, plumbing, carpet, all this crap, he's more of a laborer probably. But I mean, I'm sure there's people that can do it, but I'm just saying, for the most part, that's a red flag, right? But anyways, the general contractor called me out and he says, oh yeah, I had my guy install this equipment, and, it was a box. And what was happening was if I remember right, they would put the cakes in there, and then the cakes were splitting, I think, or so they were drying out too much or something like that. And, basically he didn't have the equipment designed properly. And I told him he ordered the equipment himself through United Refrigeration. And I said, well, you didn't give United the right information. He's like, no, he's like, I want to go back there and I want to, you know, they're their fault. This equipment's route right. And I said, no, I doubt it. I said, did you tell him what you were keeping in here? Did you tell him the humidity levels you wanted? You know, all this different stuff. And he's like, well, what? You know, he was all confused. And I go, there's a reason why we size equipment, especially when it comes to bakeries. And, you know, it really depends on what the customer wants to put in here. And I think he wanted to like put a humidifier in the box. And I was like, dude, you need to just redesign the equipment, you know? I just gave him my opinion and you gave him a bill. I said, I don't want any part of this because it was just a red tape nightmare. But yeah, anyways. All right, let's see what else we got in here. Have I ever worked on any RTUs with the fan-shaped blower as opposed to a normal squirrel cage blower? No. Maybe like the new Carrier ones or whatever, where it's like an axial style fan. I haven't worked on any of those yet, no. All right, let's see what else we got in here. Any updates on the walk-in freezer and the walk-in freezer down for 3 days video? Walk-in freezer, walk-in... I'm trying to remember that. Walk-in down for 3 days video. I don't think I have any updates because I can't quite remember that video. So let's see what else we got in here. Have I already answered that one? Can I put in a new trash can bag to a clean ice machine, then put back ice in the bin? Oh, can you put ice in a new trash bag to clean the ice machine, then put it back in the bin? I mean, is it a clean trash bag? So I've had customers do that. Is it supposed to go that way? I don't know. I've also had customers take giant Lexan pans and take all the ice out, put it in the Lexan pan, put it in the walk-in freezer, have us clean it, and then they'll ask me to add it in. And I'm not a fan of putting ice back into the bin, so I'll say, no, you need to add the ice back in. But I think you can put it in trash bags as long as they're clean. I don't know though. So union or non-union job, which is the best? It depends on your market and what you're looking for and what your area is your area saturated with unions? Does the union offer a better job for you? I mean, it really comes down to, is it better for you and your family? I'm personally not in an area where unions are very strong. We do have union companies out here, but they don't do like restaurant work and stuff like that. So the sector that I'm in doing restaurant work, there's barely any companies, if any, that are doing union work because the restaurants can't afford that. Is there anything wrong? I don't have a problem with any unions. No, nothing at all. It's really what's best for you and your family. So you need to look at the area you live in, and look at the training they'll provide you and the benefits they'll provide you, and, you know, and go from there. It really, I can't make that decision for you at all. So have I ever modified improperly sized equipment? Yeah, I've definitely done stuff to make it work for sure. Yeah. You know, tell the customer, hey, this wasn't sized right. Would you like me to, I can try some things, you know, we can play with this. We can do this. We can change the expansion valve size. We can do different stuff. Yeah, sure. You know, I've done things to get it going. I can't think of one particular situation right now where I've done that, but I've definitely done it. Have I tried the new quick connection for refrigeration piping? Yeah. I did a video using Sporland's Zoom Lock Max. I actually almost used the Zoom Lock Max today. I was doing a walk-in install, but it wasn't really going to work. It was almost the perfect place to use the Zoom Lock Max. And I had all the fittings, but it just wasn't going to turn out right. So I decided not to use it. But yeah, I've used it. I don't have any issues with it. It's really about the prep of the pipe before you use it. Don't think that the Zoom Lock Max is going to make anybody's job easier per se. You still have to be a technician. You still have to deburr the pipe. You still have to clean it. You still have to prep it properly, support it properly. You can't just throw something in there, think that the Zoom Lock Max is going to work perfect and call it a day. There's lots of prep that goes into it. So, but yeah, I have no problems with it at all. Let me see what else. What's the worst AC that I've worked on? Dirtiest or most issues? Oh, I can't really think of that one right now, but I got lots of videos of nasty ACs, dirty condensers, dirty indoor sections. I just did one a while back. Actually a pretty popular one where the evaporator was just plugged. I think I had to put like straight coil cleaner on it for like maybe like 2 or 3 bottles of straight coil cleaner, which you're not supposed to do, just to break down the amount of grease that was on it. Yeah, it's Ernesto said he's super happy that I'm about to reach 100K subs. It's a very humbling thing, guys. I genuinely never expected YouTube to turn into anything. And it's just kind of like, wow. I'm still dumbfounded that there's 328 of you watching this live stream right now. Like, I'm just rambling at this point. But it's very humbling. I'm very thankful for all the support, the comments, the likes, all that different stuff. And hey, I've learned stuff too, guys. I get feedback from people and criticism. I'm totally good with criticism and feedback. I dig it, right? Because I learn from that. So I'm open to it in the right ways. Okay. I said in the beginning of this live stream, and I'll say it again right now, there was another content creator that decided to make a video about one of my videos that he thought I did something wrong. And that was the complete wrong way to go about that, right? I'm totally open to criticism, and he must not watch my stuff very often. And the sad thing was that I actually looked up to this person. I was kind of like, wow, like really kind of a gut punch, because I genuinely looked up to him and liked his videos, and for him to make a video just totally calling me out and bashing me, it was just kind of like, dude, that was inappropriate. Like, there's a right way to do it. Send me an email, leave me a comment, say, hey, this wasn't right. I almost read almost every comment, and he didn't even give me a chance to get to a live stream, because I usually talk about my mistakes on the live streams. And so, yeah, I'm totally open to criticism though. So you guys see something that I'm doing wrong, tell me. Just don't be a punk about it, but send me an email, leave me a comment. Just don't make a YouTube video about it. That was kind of silly. But anyways, the larger the system, the longer the deep vac holds during a decay test. The larger the system, the longer the deep vac holds during the decay test. I guess. I'd never really thought about that very much. Typically, I'm wondering, I usually don't let the decay test go for as long as I probably should. I'll usually do a decay test for about 10 to 20 minutes. So I'll pull an evacuation to either 500 microns or 200 microns, depending on if it's a medium temperature or a low temp. And then I'll usually let it decay for 10 to 20 minutes, making sure that it doesn't rise above 1,000, depending on what I'm working on. And if it makes it 10 to 20 minutes without rising above 1,000, I usually call it good. So I'm sure that people can criticize that practice, but that's usually how I roll. So, let's see what else. No, see, and Ernesto, but see, that's the thing. Like, I'm bummed about the YouTuber, because I did like his stuff. Like, I appreciate everybody's information. There's so much knowledge to be shared. And, also too, I still have respect in the person's skills as a technician, for sure. Right. I don't appreciate the way that he went about addressing something that I potentially made a mistake on. And I still don't know if it was an actual mistake or not. It could have been, who knows, but I still have respect for him. I don't not watch their videos anymore. I still watch them, but it's just kind of a bummer. It's kind of a letdown for someone that you look up to like do that. And you're like, wow, that sucked, but whatever. It is what it is. People are people. People make mistakes too. So, oh, well, I forgive the guy, Let me see. Smash my 100,000 button live on the stream if I get 1,000 likes in my next video. What is this? It's a Team Adam from, yep, it is A Team Adam, right? How would Zoom lock stand up to vertical installations? That's a good question. I mean, they say it'll work just fine. I didn't have any issues with it. I actually would think that a vertical, if you think about like gravity and stuff, why wouldn't a vertical be better, really? I don't know. As long as you properly support it, I don't see how it would affect vertical or horizontal. I think it would be the same as long as you... The thing about the Zoom Lock Max is you have to make sure that you're properly supporting the pipe. You don't want any weird vibrations or anything like that. But even their stuff is supposed to be vibration tested too. So, yeah. Decay test was for VRF specifically. Oh, okay. Got you. All right, let's see what else. If the system is very large, yes, a small leak will have less effect for a given time. Yeah, I guess that makes sense too. Let me look at my list of questions, make sure I'm not missing anything right now. Understanding, okay, so when we're working on our equipment too, you want to make sure you have a basic understanding of what you're working on. Understanding the sequence, like having a general understanding of the sequence of operation is really, really going to help you guys. Help all of us, right? I work on a lot of walk-in freezers and walk-in coolers. That's the most common thing I work on. So, I have a general understanding of how most of them operate. Now, every once in a while, someone throws a wrench in something and they put some new digital control or something in it, but it's still the basic operation. And my troubleshooting still starts out the same. Really important though, is when we start our troubleshooting process is you don't want to skip the important simple things. You still want to check voltage. Even if you have a condenser fan motor running, still check voltage, you know, because condenser fan motors can still run on low voltage, you know, so don't just make assumptions. I've done it and it bites you in the butt. Guys, most of the mistakes that I've made, that's how I've learned majority. I've grown as a technician by making mistakes. And the reason, you know, I try to share my mistakes with you guys in hopes that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I've made. Our industry is not as forgiving as it used to be, because some of the stuff that I got away with, the mistakes, were pretty insane. You know, it was pretty silly, some of the stuff that I did. And, you know, we couldn't get away with that these days. You know, of course, I never charged the customer for that stuff. We always made it right. But still, it's not even about money. They just don't want incompetence in their place. And I think as a technician, I was allowed to make too many mistakes, really, because I don't let my own guys make the same amount of mistakes that I made back then. It's not appropriate. It's not going to happen. MIRA, thank you so very much for that super chat, bud. I really, really appreciate it. And that is not needed, but thank you very much, bud. Very nice of you. So I wanted to kind of address this. This was something that I talked about on my video recently. And, you know, remember, my videos are for my own technicians and I share them for the public, you know, whatever viewing too. But, you know, I talked about sharing information with managers. Okay. So just as much as we need to understand the sequence of operation with the equipment we're working on, we also need to understand the way we're supposed to communicate and the way we need to talk with the managers and the proper procedures we need to follow. So most of the restaurants that I work with, I actually don't work for the restaurant and I don't work for the restaurant management. I am employed by the corporate offices, right? So I answer to people in the corporate office. But something that you have to remember is we're walking into a general manager's restaurant, right? He's in charge of the whole restaurant. Technically, he doesn't have control over me, but I don't walk in there flaunting that. I don't go in there disrespectfully telling him, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm just going to fix this because you're boss. You know, no. Even though he doesn't have any control over me, I still go in and give him respect and try to make him feel like he's part of the decision-making process, because your relationship that you build with that management and the trust that you build with them is going to go a long way. I'm not trying to brag, but majority of my business that I do right now is the relationship that my dad built with 3 core customers that we still have today in the 1980s, early 90s. He built a relationship with them of trust. And that relationship has grown because guess what? It's turned into like 6 different restaurant chains because managers left, managers got promoted, they went to other chains, other brands, and that relationship that he built with them and that I continued and have built with new managers is continuing to grow. But also understanding that for the most part, I'm working for the corporate structure and not for the management level. So there's certain information I'm going to share with the management level. There's certain information that the corporate level doesn't want me to share with the management level, you know? So you have to learn how to play that game. So it's not just a matter of going in and fixing things. Once you get up into management, and even as a service tech, you have to learn to play the game, basically. And you have to know who to talk to, when to say things, when not to say things. Nothing wrong with it. But I had a service technician today that was making a repair. And again, he didn't do anything wrong. But I just had to tell him. He was making a repair and he had a refrigerant leak and he had an AeroQuip fitting. An AeroQuip fitting is a mechanical fitting that you tighten and it makes a connection, right? I don't really care for AeroQuip fittings. We use them on ice machines a lot and lower cost installations on walk-in coolers. So he had a refrigerant leak on an AeroQuip fitting and he took it upon himself to go ahead and put some nylog on it, loosen it up, put some nylog and torque it down to proper specs. But before he did that, he went to the management and said, hey, would you rather me change this AeroQuip fitting, eliminate it completely, or would you rather me just try to tighten it? And the manager said, just try to tighten it. And he went and did that. And then he called me after. And again, he didn't do anything wrong, but I just told him, I said, look, I'd rather you not fix an AeroQuip fitting. If you have the opportunity and we're there on a service call, pump the system down, cut the AeroQuip out, put two couplings and a piece of copper and be done with it. I said the management, they don't need to be involved in that decision-making process because I know that eventually that AeroQuip fitting is going to leak again, right? And so it's one of those things. Again, my guy didn't do anything wrong. He fixed the equipment. He got it operating. He did what he needed to do. But it was, you know, what I had a discussion with him was look, there's certain things you got to learn not to share with the manager. And that was one of them. And again, I wasn't mad at him or anything. It was a learning experience. Like, look, you don't need to share that with the management. You need to go down, because I know from the corporate level, they want it fixed and they don't want me to have to go back again. So, you know, that's an example of how, you know, talking with a manager, we have to learn how to play the game. It's just a simple thing. So, let me see what else we got in here. When do I decide to call it quits on a piece of equipment in terms of lifespan? Well, it's not my decision to say call it quits, but I can strongly suggest, right? And what I mean by strongly suggest, when I go to the customer and I say, this can no longer be repaired, and they say, what do you mean it can't be repaired? And they'll say, I've had this happen. Do you mean I can't call someone else and they won't come in and fix it? And no, okay, so I've had to learn how to rephrase my words. I highly recommend that you replace this equipment. If you don't, I can make an attempted repair, but I can't warranty anything. So everything you pay me to try to fix it, I'm not guaranteeing anything, right? It's a piece of junk, you know? So you can say certain things without threatening and without being a punk, you know? Of course, I always let the customer make the final decision. So, hey, I really, really suggest that we replace this piece of equipment, but hey, here's a quote to fix it, but I can't make any guarantees. And I can't give any warranties. So you guys make the decision. Would you like me to go ahead and make the repair? Sometimes they say, yeah, okay, cool, no problem, you know, and we fix it. But I always try to put that decision in their hands, okay? I have the ability, and I have a good relationship with my corporate contacts to be able to say, this one is one of those you need to not fix, trust me, you know, or whatever we got to do. Let me see what else. Is Larkin a common Heatcraft brand in my area? Yeah. Heatcraft has several different brands. They're all the same. Larkin, Bone, Larkin, Bone, and Climate Control, I think, are the three brands. There might be one more, but yeah, they're all the same thing. So, have I worked on packaged walk-ins? No, I actually haven't worked on packaged walk-ins before. So, all right, let me cross that one off. I already answered that one. Answered that one. Why would I use a headmaster or head pressure control valve instead of a fan cycling control? I've answered this question a few times. I will say it again. A head pressure control, first off, I live in a moderate climate. I live in Southern California. Our winters typically on average are 45 to 65 degree winters, right? We don't know what cold is here in California, okay? So when it is 60 degrees outside, and what'll happen, let's say we have an R290 condensing unit, we have a fan cycle control on it. When it's 60 degrees outside, the ambient temperature is cool enough that my condensing pressure will drop and my fan cycle control will shut off my condenser fan motor. But I can count on my hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Within 5, that condenser fan motor turns back on, because instantly when that fan cycle control turns off the condenser fan motor, the head pressure rises and the fan cycle, and it's like a 5-second interval, on, off, on, off. And while that's happening, if you pay attention to what your sight glass is doing, what you're going to notice is your sight glass drains when that condenser fan motor turns off. And then it takes a few minutes and eventually it'll clear black up. But the problem is that we're in such a moderate climate that the fan going on and off, on and off, on and off, it doesn't get a chance to clear back up. And then we start having refrigerant issues. So that's why I say fan cycle controls in my area are too violent on the system. Now, that's typically on a single component fan unit, right? If I only have one single fan motor. If I have two fan motors, you can stage the fan cycles. And it works a little bit better. So you shut off one at one certain pressure, and 40 PSI lower, you shut off the other one. So then it's like a slow, and it's not both fan motors shutting off. But I prefer a head pressure control valve or a headmaster because it's a lot smoother on the system. You just have to have a properly sized refrigeration system with a properly sized receiver and enough storage capacity to store the extra refrigerant in it, okay? But because of the climate I'm in right now, yes, a fan cycle control will work, but I just noticed them turn on and off so much. And yes, you can spread that number out, but I prefer just using a head pressure control valve. I find that it's a lot less violent on the system, and I like it that way. Now, you know, if you live in a really cold climate, maybe a fan cycle control will work really good for you. But here, I'm just watching them turn on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, and I just don't like it. So, any advice for someone just getting out of school and starting as a rookie in the field? You know, just keep your head straight. Keep your mouth closed, keep your eyes open and your ears open. I kind of said that a few minutes ago, but know when to ask questions, know when to pay attention, and try to predict what your boss or the person you're working for working with is going to need from you, and you're going to learn from that. Take pictures of everything, research when you get home those pictures, even if it's a piece of equipment. And then, you know, when you're driving is a really, really good time to ask questions as long as they're not too stressed out. So hopefully that answers that a little bit more for you. Am I planning on adding a small trailer to my van for contactors only? Yes, I go through a lot of contactors, and no, I'm not going to add a trailer. I keep probably about 10 different contactors in my truck on a daily, so we go through them a lot in the wintertime. I already answered that one. All right, let's see what else we got in here. Do I have any other companies come in and help me with my refrigerators and air conditioners? No, I don't partner with any other companies or anything like that. We do all our own work. So I definitely talk a lot less about poop on this channel, JD. Yeah, the overtime show, the HVAC overtime show is a little bit more uncensored and a little bit more relaxed, and I'm typically drinking on the overtime show, and the stuff that comes out of my mouth sometimes is rather not appropriate for this channel. Probably should tone it down on the overtime channel too, because I've been running my mouth a bit much. So let's see what else we got in here. Okay, I already answered that one. Can a fan cycle control cause a unit turn off on high head pressure? If it failed, but no, not if it's operating properly. It shouldn't, no. Any recommendations for a low ambient control for an AC? You have many clients who like to run AC during mild weather and freeze the coils. No, I don't deal with the resi stuff very much in that situation, and I don't deal with the low ambient on the air conditioning systems very much. So no, I don't have a suggestion for you. Sorry, bud. I'm sure maybe some people in the chat might have here. In what area would I say I have my competitors beat? I'm never going to assume that I have my competitors beat. I'm on my own path. I'm not worried about my competitors. I shouldn't say I'm not worried about them, but I'm not trying to compete with them. I'm just trying to be a good service technician, and I'm trying to stay on focus with that. If I'm better than my competitors in one place, then so be it. I was just having a conversation with a facilities guy at one of my restaurants the other day, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and, you know, went up and said hey to him. Of course, we don't shake hands anymore because of the whole COVID thing, but we were just talking, and he brought up one of my competitors, and he said, you know, I have a problem. And he started talking, and I said, look, I just want to start this conversation off real quick. I said, you can say whatever you want to say, but I want you to understand that I have my own problems too. My service technicians have my own problems, and I don't ever talk crap about my competitors. I let my work speak for itself. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, you know, and then he told me the issue, and the issue that he had oftentimes too. I've actually defended my competitors, you know, when someone starts talking crap about them, I'll say, you know, I would like to say that I could do it better, but, you know, I might run into that same problem too. I could see where that would happen, you know, so I don't like to talk crap on people. You know, I prefer to just keep my mouth shut. So, but I really don't think I have my competitors beat in any one particular area. Do I ever use liquid line heat exchangers to subcool the liquid in the walk-in? No, I actually don't. It's not something that I need to do very much out here. If our systems are sized properly, I don't really have the need for liquid line heat exchangers. Not anything I've ever added to a system. So, all right. All right. Well, I really, really appreciate you guys making it here. Do me a favor, guys. Go check out my website, hvacrvideos.com. Lots of merch available on there. Helps to support the channel. Got hats, sweaters. Look at, I'm like a walking merch show. T-shirts, the flag shirt, beanies. Beanies available. All on hvacrvideos.com. Really, really appreciate you guys. If you're considering any tool purchases, check out TrueTechTools.com. Use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word. You can save 8% on your order. HVAC Overtime Show, Friday evenings, usually about 6:05 p.m. with my buddies, Adam, Joe, and Bill. And we usually talk about whatever's going on during the week. So come check it out, guys. I really, really appreciate you. Smash the thumbs up button on your way out. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the outro music, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Yo, I gotta address something. So my buddy Bill sent me a package today. And my wife, knowing the conversations that Bill and Adam and Joe and I have. So also I got to say, my wife this weekend, we were driving home from going out over the weekend. We went to go watch the sunset at some beach, and it was a nice time. But anyways, we were driving home, and my wife she'll go through my phone because she's going through pictures. Like, I take a lot of pictures, and she usually sends them to herself. So I hand her my phone. She's going through it, and she's like, why is there a picture of poop on your phone? Why is there a picture of a toilet on your phone? And I'm like, oh, yeah, because, you know, and then there's some other funny, silly pictures. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's funny. You should have heard that. That was a story that I was talking with my buddies. So she already is like, these guys, you know, whatever. She's joking around. But I get a package today, right? And it's all wrapped in duct tape like this. And my wife goes, there's a package and it says it's from Bill. She goes, I'm afraid to open it. She was genuinely afraid to open it because she didn't know what was going to be inside of it. And Bill's funny too, because Bill, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. If you guys don't watch the Overtime show, what happens is I'll share my family pictures in our group chat, and Bill will Photoshop the pictures and superimpose himself into weird, awkward places in my family photos. And I think it's hilarious. But anyways, so Bill sent me these really awesome HVAC Overtime cups. They say HVAC, you can't see it right now, but then Overtime, super nice, like Scotch glasses. Super, super cool. So thanks so much, Bill. That was really awesome of you, man. So, oh yeah, I'm not going to tell him about the TikTok. Adam sent me a TikTok and I was like, dude, what the, I clicked on the TikTok he sent me and my volume was really loud. And that was not like, I was like, no. So yeah, we always mess with everybody. Oh yeah. So, again, Bill, I know you're watching right now, bud. I shaved my face and, I shaved my head, and you promised that if I did that, you would shave your beard. So what's up, Bill? Come on. Challenge accepted. You know, Bill told me if I shaved my stuff, he didn't believe me, so I did it. And I'm waiting for his video where he shaves all of his crap, his whole beard and everything. So let's see if it happens, man. All right, come on, Bill. Do it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, thanks so much, Silas. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for that super chat, you guys. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, cue back up the outro music, and let you guys enjoy that. And we will catch you on the next one.